Hello, all my bizcasters. Welcome back to another episode. We are here in this sort of series talking with some of my favorite podcasters and podcasting people about how they've approached podcasting. And we've talked about all different ways for you to look at approaching your podcast. And today I am meeting with Dorien, and she takes a very different approach. I've been on her show before. And what's really interesting is that she goes live and she does a live show every single week. Now, she'll tell you there's a little bit of flexibility in that, thank God, because she does it at 8 a.m. in the morning, East Coast time, which is when my kids get on the bus. So it's a little tough for that, but she has flexibility. But I really wanted her to share with you why she approaches it that way, what benefits she gets from it, because we have heard from other podcasters about this live strategy, about just going live, turning the camera on, going live, and go with that flow rather than working with the pre-recorded type of podcast that I'm tending to do here. Doreen, welcome. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
I'm so glad you're here.
Thanks for inviting me. I'm so excited. I'm so
I
excited to share this with everybody.
I love it. So tell us about your show.
All right. It's called Strategy Talks. It's in season 3. So year 3. I basically, yay, I just did my 100th episode.
Woohoo!
It's really good. And it's for entrepreneurs, marketers, small business owners, really any curious humans. We talk about marketing, entrepreneurship, business, and I tie everything back to strategy. So what's the strategy, right? I want people to not just get, oh, here's a tip, here's an idea. I really want to dive a little bit deeper. So you were asking how I do this. I invite everybody to come in about 15 minutes before we start recording or before we go live. So in the green room, I talk with my guest. Every single episode has a guest that they're the expert. And so I elevate them, which is one of my strategies. And then we get the conversation going before we even go live. So by the time we go live, we're already 5-10 minutes in deep. So that way we can dig a little bit deeper because it takes a little bit of time to set up a conversation. So that's one of the ways that I get people talking is starting in the green room and then going forward. And I'm sure you want to know why I do live. Honestly, as a busy business owner, it's the least amount of time that I can spend with the largest and the biggest ROI. So I spend 30 minutes a week recording, whether I do live, sometimes I record them ahead of time and push them out as live, but it's 30 minutes of my time. I spend about half an hour for each episode, getting the bio, reading about the guest, getting the questions ready, doing an intro, like a hook that I want to say before I get started. And then once it's done, I hand it off to my VA, who then turns it into a podcast, who has all the images. I do video editing. I do take the video and create little snippets, little shorts from them. I do it because it makes me accountable by doing it weekly. It holds me accountable.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's such a huge thing. Like for folks that have more like procrastination syndrome, right? If you feel like you're just going to hold off, or even if you record, and I'm starting to see this even from just launching mine, that it's really easy to sit here and record the episode and then tuck it away and be like, okay, it's going to hang out over here. And it's never really going to see the light of day. It's going to see the light of day. But it just becomes really easy to say, okay, this is the fun part. This is the part we all like to do as podcasters. If we're doing the interview styles, we like having the conversations. We want to dive deep. But at the end of the day, it's just, okay, now we have all this other work on the back end. And I think the live strategies that I've seen people doing, it really forces you out of that procrastination piece, at least in terms of saying, okay, I've got this scheduled. We're going live and this is what this is going to be. One of the things I think that can make people fearful of that, at least it would make me fearful, is do you ever have anything go wrong in the middle of your lives or have those hiccups and things that you can't really correct for?
No, the only thing that's ever happened is about a year and a half in, I started getting pitches of people who wanted to be on my podcast. Initially, I really tapped into my network and I accepted a pitch from somebody who had a podcast manager. I confirmed that they were going to show up and then they didn't. So it was literally 5 minutes before, and I'm realizing not responding, not getting. So what I did is I went live by myself and it was a big flop and I deleted it 15 minutes later. So that's about the worst that happened. I have people on sometimes that have never been on a podcast, certainly people on that have never been on a live. I've had my own brother on who lives in the Netherlands, my daughter who's 23 and new
Oh,
into corporate world. I try to find different people, and sometimes people want a little phone call or they want a trial run. And if they're really hesitant, we'll pre-record. But I tell them, I'm not editing this. So it's just a conversation with me. Just
right.
whatever you can tell me should be able to go out into the world. But you censor it for what you want to say. And I want it to be authentic. I think that's the other piece to that. That's why
Mm.
this works so really well.
Yeah, and do you find that you have to do a lot of coaching with folks that don't necessarily haven't had that experience yet of being live or are very nervous about just that mental capacity of being live?
Very, very little coaching. I always tell them I'm holding the wheel. So
Mm,
you're my passenger. All you need to do is click on this link, show up, smile. I'll make sure like you look good, you sound good. And then
right.
I'm going to ask you questions about something that you're the expert in. You have picked a topic. You're
Mhm.
the expert. Yeah, I'm feeding you questions. I actually purposely don't give them the questions ahead of time because I don't want them to
Oh,
pre-think about it. And I
okay.
don't want them to make up things in their head and then forget and then stumble.
Oh,
So that's a really good
smart.
tip, I
Yeah.
think, because there's sometimes people ask, "What are you gonna ask?" So that in the green room, I'll say, "I'll feed you the first question. The first question is gonna be about why are you an expert in XYZ?" Might be the
Right.
first question. I said, so then once you start talking, I'll hone into something you say and I'll riff off of that because that's
Mhm.
really the lovely part about the live show. I can see reactions come in if people are listening or they're asking questions. I can also see my own reaction to what the guest is saying and my wheels are spinning and I'm thinking, "Ooh, that was really smart." I love the flow of that, of being
Yeah.
the facilitator and lifting up them with their expertise and really digging deep in what they have to say and getting that out of them. It's really fun. It's really fun.
That's a gift. That's actually a gift to be able to really be able to do that and to be able to have those conversations. And I like your perspective about not giving the questions ahead of time because I've been debating this even on my own podcast. Like, which way should we go? Like, should I prepare people with the questions I want to ask them in advance, or should I just dive into the conversation more naturally? And I have in the back of my head, like, where I want the conversation to go or what things I'd like people to hit on. But I've done the same thing. I haven't really given the questions in advance. And it's interesting because I was on Brooke's show, Brooke Sellis's show for Social Media Examiner, and she gave me the questions in advance. And it's funny, it's not until you just said that I realized like I was hung up on those questions. I was
Yep.
like, "Oh, I have no idea how I'm going to answer this thing."
Yeah.
I'm like, "What is it?" She like the way she phrased this one question or a couple of the questions. I'm like, "I don't have an answer for that. Like maybe I shouldn't be doing the show. Maybe I shouldn't be out there." Like I started really spinning the wheels in my head before I got on with her because I'm thinking to myself, who am I to be answering these questions? And had she just winged it with me, which was what you and I did when I was on your show, it was just a conversation between the two of us about podcasting. That was fine. I'm okay with actually the mystery of not knowing what you're going to say to me.
Exactly. And I also think then you get to the scripted versus authentic, right?
Yeah.
If I catch you saying something that I love, I'll say, "Stop. Can you
Mhm.
repeat that?" And
Ah,
I'll lean in and I'll be like, "You just said something super smart." But if everything is scripted, you might not have room for that. And then you might not bring out the best in that person. That's what I feel. I think it's something that just works really well. But yeah, I've had people that are a little worried about being on, but I always tell them, "Look, I can talk for 4 hours while I'm training for a marathon and we're running a marathon. I'll talk to 4 hours about recipes with whoever is next to me. I could talk to anybody. Don't worry, I got this. I'm driving the car." So I haven't had a guest who doesn't know what to say. They all know what to say.
that's awesome. And so, well, tell us a little bit about like how has having this show, like what has that done professionally for you?
Okay, so you're asking me about ROI. So the ROI is actually pretty initially I wasn't sure like how to measure it, but what I've decided how I want to measure it is that I have a drip of leads coming in continually.
Oh,
And it's really opened up more. Like instead of a drip, it's now more like a faucet. It's really going.
mhm.
So more and more leads are coming in and people are referencing, "I heard this episode," or "I listened to this," or "I
Yeah.
heard you say this." And then one of the secrets that I'm going to share with everybody that's listening today is that when I go live, the first year I went live to LinkedIn on my personal profile, to YouTube, to my Facebook page, to my Facebook profile, and to Twitter. And the last year and a half, I stopped going live to Twitter because nothing's going on over there anyway. And I took away the Facebook page because nothing was going on. But the
Mm.
most ROI, the direct ROI, has come from my personal profile on Facebook, believe it or not. I am connected, and I'm sure those of you who are listening, to a lot of people in the community, right? Facebook,
Mhm.
even though we're connected to people all over the world, we're also usually connected to people within our community where we live, right? If you have children, you might know people from school, the PTO, PTA, right? You might belong to a church or an organization. You might have volunteered for a running race. So you're connected with local people. And when those local people see you go live week after week on your personal profile on Facebook, I'm not selling anything. I'm not saying contact me. But when they need an expert, they'll go, "You need to talk to Doreen." When somebody asks them, "Do you know anybody who does social media?" I get so many referrals, and it all comes back to they're connected to me on Facebook because those people
Mm.
don't, especially if they're not on LinkedIn, they don't have a social media manager or social media strategist in their circle. So
Right.
that's really, I had one, it was a 10-year lead. It's an awesome story. In 2011, I started my business and I lived in Myrtle Beach and I started a networking group called Hands On Networking. And it
Mm.
was literally, I had taken a course how to be a social media manager. I got a bunch of people together and I said, I'm going to teach you all about Twitter. That's the kind of person that I am. So we got together once a week. I'm learning, I'm teaching them online stuff, but we're also connecting in person. So that's the hands on part.
Yep.
And one of the members had just started her own firm, her law firm. And so we became friends. I formed a board. She was on the board with me. And then she moved away. And then 10 years later, I moved away. But we'd been connected. She had a family. My kids grew up. And then I started Strategy Talks and she listened for about 6 months. I then also created a LinkedIn newsletter to go with it.
Mm.
And she was reading a LinkedIn newsletter. And about 6 months in, she responded to my LinkedIn newsletter and said, "Hey, I need to talk to you. Let's set up a Zoom."
Wow.
And she was about 11 years into her business, and she's like, "I need to hire you." It was a 10-year lead. So, it was directly related to seeing me go live every week for
Yeah.
6 months, and she's still my client 2 years later. So, it's been a great ride to see it. And now, like I said or said earlier, people are coming to me. They're pitching to me. I get lots of pitches about, "Can I have this, person on?" Or sometimes people pitch themselves, which is better for me than having somebody just randomly
Yeah.
do that. But yeah, I'm expanding a little bit more about who I have on and the topics, but it's been a really fun ride. So that was one example. And then on LinkedIn, of course, I have a lot of visibility on LinkedIn. I get DMs, people like, "Hey, somebody shared an episode, or I've listened to these three things, or you said something in this episode that I really love." And they might refer me business. They might come to a webinar I attend or, I give or something. There's always something going on. I know people are listening. I know people are watching. And then this year I added the YouTube Shorts, which is a new thing I've been doing. I've been
Yep.
going live to YouTube, but it wasn't really doing a whole lot. But now I'm creating little snippets from each episodes and putting them out as shorts,
Yep.
and I'm growing my YouTube channel, and a lot more people are seeing them in their feed. So now I'm getting messages, "Hey, I saw your stuff on YouTube." And so it's just wherever you
Yeah.
concentrate, right? You get that feedback. Yes, the faucet's open, clients are coming, people are inquiring, leads are coming in, and it's direct result of being visible every single week.
That's amazing. And like you said, and for you, this path is the easiest path for going live every single week by making sure it's a live show. And by the way, folks, I just want to repeat something that she said. Do not discount Facebook. I feel like every marketer discounts Facebook these days. We write it off. It's, oh no, LinkedIn is the new thing, or do your Instagram or do your YouTube. Some days I am very surprised by how much Facebook still is the number one platform that I see folks get things from. And even my clients like we'll share the shorts or we share this or that. And I'm constantly coming back and reporting like, your most views came from Facebook. That's really where you're getting I know you want it on Instagram, but it's here.
Right.
So don't discount Facebook.
Oh, no.
And
I do think it depends on your demographics, but don't
mm,
forget, we as marketers, right? You and me as marketers, we forget we're in this bubble of everybody we know knows about AI, knows about podcasting, knows about social media, knows about marketing. All of us, we're connected to
everybody.
everybody. But who our friends are on Facebook don't
Don't
know
know.
any of that. I have one friend who is in sales who still writes everything in a book, doesn't even have a
Oh,
CRM. So think about that. And then we're using AI. So we're
yeah.
always able to reach people. And those are the people that are on Facebook and they might at some point need our help with whatever expert you are. Don't
Yeah.
discount them.
Yeah, I think that's so important for anybody to remember about their business. Like, we tend to surround ourselves with the people who are like us, right? Professionally speaking, like we're surrounded by marketers who are brilliant at all of their areas of expertise. And I do find it funny because coming out of social media marketing world this year, everybody's talking about AI, AI this, AI that. And AI, I feel like I am way behind because I'm not even close to using it the way that I should be. But and then I turn around and I walk into a classroom at the university where I teach, and I say something to my students about it. And it's funny to watch my students cringe about talking about AI because, from a student's perspective, they've been taught to think it was bad. Oh, it's cheating. I'm like, no, it's a useful tool. And holy, but to them, I'm 6 steps ahead of them. And it's so funny when you don't. I'm like, oh no, I'm like 20 steps behind everybody else. No, it's just because I know brilliant people who are so much further ahead. Now, this kind of leads me too into what I wanted to ask you because you have been running your show for so long. And if anybody want, please go check out the show for Strategy Talks. She has had some of the most brilliant people on there. And I have been forever curious about how you have been sourcing so many brilliant people onto your show, because that's one of the things I think people also come to fear with, or at least I've even seen this with some of my interview podcasters, is what happens when I run out of people? Like, I only know so many people. So what do I do?
Yeah.
How do I keep up with people? Because I've run out of people.
So that is a great question. And I have a couple of different answers. So, one
Oh,
of the things that I do is when I invite somebody on my podcast, on my live show, I send them a Google form. And the last question on the Google form is, who do you know that would be a great guest on Strategy Talks? And they often leave names of brilliant people. So when I am looking for new guests, I'll go to my Google form. And right now I've had 22 people for this year already fill them out. And I'll
mm,
go write all the names down and see if I'm connected to them. If I'm not, I'm going to ask that person who recommended them to go ahead and introduce us. And then
yeah.
the second tip is I do a lot of in person networking. Like you, I go to conferences. Whether I speak or when it's a little bit different when I speak versus when I attend. If I speak, I connect with every single speaker ahead of the conference about 30 days to 2 weeks out, and I send them a message, "Hey, fellow speaker, looking forward to meeting you at XYZ conference." So now I'm connected to them, and when I'm there, I'm trying to meet up with them. Only the people that I actually meet in person, I then say, "Hey, I'd love to have you. I would love to continue the conversation. Would you consider being on my podcast?" And if they say yes, I will afterwards have a way to follow up and say, "Hey, it was so great to meet you. I know you're probably home
Mm,
from a trip. I just wanted to give you the link. You said yes. This is how the process is. Would you fill out the form? And I'd love for you to book it." So that's the little process I go. I don't cold ask them, but that's how I've
mm,
had some brilliant people because I've been on brilliant stages with fellow speakers, and you have this instant camaraderie with them
yeah.
when you're share the same stage. So that's how I've been able to reach out to these people and ask them to come on my platform. And I find that when it's like that, when it's you're in their eyes, now you're equal, right? They
Hmm.
speak, you speak. They're on the same stage. They
Right.
always say yes. Now, as a conference attendee, it's a little bit different, but you could one of the ways I've done it is I will sit in on the session if there's a speaker. If there's a
Mhm.
speaker and I want them on my podcast, sit in the session, take pictures, tag them on Instagram or on Facebook, on Twitter. I used to be on Twitter, tag them, say brilliant things about them, and then when they like it, whatever, you have the conversation. And then I'll reach out to them on LinkedIn and say, "Hey, I really enjoyed it. I would love to have you on my podcast." And the other thing I do, I think that helps too. I have my calendar open for the whole year. I
Mhm.
book people far out. Right now, I'm booking 2, 3 months out, But
Okay.
also, especially busy speakers and brilliant people that might be more inclined to say no, I'll say,
Right.
"Look, if you have a book launch in the fall or you wanna do something in October, November, the calendar's open all year. You find your spot."
Brilliant. Yeah, because so many people I will admit I think mine is too. Like it only goes out for 30 days.
Right.
And I never really thought about why I do that, except for the fact that I know for some people who have trouble booking guests, they want them to book closer so that they're filling in their episode space, right?
Right.
Because they're afraid they're going to run out of people to talk to. And then all of a sudden you're out of episodes. And then what do you do? And then you're scrambling. But I like that idea too of leaving that wide open so that, like you said, some of the harder to get speakers that you want, they have that flexibility to figure that out and where align that with whatever their goals are for the year too, right? Because
Yeah,
they
because
yeah, we're all
often
gonna hype it up.
Yeah, because often if they ask you if it's a now, it's a no. But if you give them
Oh,
the it's a later anytime that's convenient, it's hard for them to say no. I'm giving them all the way until December. There's got to be one 30-minute slot that I can have from you.
right.
So that's one of the reasons why I do that. So hopefully this is
Yep.
helpful. The other thing that somebody told me before I started my podcast, I did a lot of research. I know you did too, Sarah. We talked about it. Somebody said to me, invite 20 people. Don't start your podcast until you've invited 20 people. 12 have said yes and have booked them. And so you have the first 3 months scheduled out
Yeah.
because most podcasts don't go beyond episode 6. So if
Mhm.
you go to 12, now 3 months in, you're in a habit. So
Yep.
I try to be 10 to 12 weeks ahead. That's why I'm booking 2, 3 months ahead right now. And then at the end of the year, when it's really busy November, December, I give myself a 3 or 4 week break. So right at the beginning, I try to book a couple people early January, like maybe in November, I'll say, hey, do you want to do January? But then most of the booking will start in January. I'll do heavy asking and then I'll book it
Mhm.
all the way to the end of March. And just that takes the pressure off of me. I'm not constantly scrambling and I
Yeah.
bulk invite. I'll invite 10 people at a time. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh, my whole calendar's filling up. It's great. It's
That's
really fun.
amazing. I know
Yes.
what I'm doing.
Yes. Yes.
And I think that's huge. I think that strategy is such a big and that's what I'm doing too. Like I haven't even launched yet, right? And I have 4 interviews on the books. I've got 2 more coming next week. But that was really what I wanted to be able to do was to say, okay, when I go live, I want to be able to know I've got 2 months worth of episodes already in the bank, ready to go because it takes the pressure off me to have to scramble, scramble, scramble to keep going. It gives me that bandwidth to be able to say, okay, I've got some time to get the next guest, to get the next thing, to do whatever it is that's going to be next. And I think that's really crucial to think about when we're building all of these things. Now, Doreen, one of my all the way through this, I have to ask because I'm such a tools junkie. What are the tools that you're using for going live, for scheduling everything? Like, what are your favorite things that you're using to do all this with?
Okay, so I use StreamYard to go live. I then download everything. It goes into Google Drive, so I share that with my VA. She uses Descript. She takes the transcript. I then put the video in Descript, and I do the video editing. I then finish them in CapCut. I use Agorapulse for scheduling.
Woohoo.
And let me see what else I use, if there's anything else. I think that's my oh, and Calendly for that's I've got Calendly for my links to get everybody to book, and my Google form, of course, is Google product as well. And that works really well when you have a team. They have a team email and they can get into all your files and stuff. So that's my little circle of tools that I use and it's working
Love
out
it.
really well right now. Yeah, I'm pretty psyched about it actually. I know that you and I talked last fall and I had only used a script for transcript and
Oh,
you're the one who said to me you can do a lot more with it and I started doing the video cutting and
mhm.
using AI and it's opened up my world. I lost a client in November and I decided to take that time, those 6 weeks to really learn video editing and I
Yep.
came out into January being super confident with it. And I'm now able to do that for clients to the point where
Mhm.
they're absolutely loving it. So it's a not a new service I offer, but really an additional thing that I can do with content that they already had that I can whip it up really quick for them now. So I actually love the Descript CapCut combination.
Now, what are you doing with CapCut?
I do the captions. So when I record in StreamYard, it's a vertical recording side
Okay.
by side. And
Yep.
so I then take that in and then I cut the clips. And so they're still side by sides. And I take them into CapCut and I make a 16 by 9. I make a vertical one instead of a horizontal one. I just said that wrong earlier, I think. So it's instead of
Like, oh,
side
do
by
it this
side,
way.
I
We
put 'em
do it this way.
yeah, I put them on top of each other. So now that's and then I add the captions and then I add branding.
Okay.
So it makes it and then I can put them out as YouTube Shorts, I can put them out as Reels, I put them
Yep.
on LinkedIn that way. They pop a little bit more on LinkedIn because people have already seen them as a live side by side. So
Right.
then when I put them on LinkedIn as a vertical one, gives a little bit like, "Oh, this is new. I haven't seen this before" vibe.
Yeah.
So that's how I do that's why I use that.
Someday I'll have to show you the secret to doing that in Descript too, because that's
Yeah.
what I do inside of Descript.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I love it. I think tool stacking is one of the best things that you can do for yourself as a podcaster is find the tools that you like. Like right now I'm working in Squadcast just because I wanted to see what Squadcast was all about. It's Descript's version of a recording tool. And I just wanted to see what it was about because I have clients in Riverside, I've got clients in StreamYard. I know what both of those tools do. So I'm like, let's see what this does for a little while.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to find the tools that are most comfortable. Again, Squadcast won't go live in the type of scenario that you do, which is why you need like a StreamYard, which can stream to multiple
Yeah. Yeah.
platforms at once. Now, one other question I do have about the live platform, because this is the comment I hear from folks who have either done it, and actually have a client now who was doing lives and then she's backed off the lives. How do you feel about the attendance and
Alright.
people
So
actually coming during the live session? Because so many people take that as whether this is a worth it or not. Like, they're like, "But nobody shows up."
I
How are
literally
you
put a
feeling?
sticky note. I put a sticky note on it. It's right in the corner in StreamYard. I put a sticky note over it. I don't even wanna know.
Good.
I do invite people to when I first start the episode and say to them, "Hey, if you're here live, let us know where you're joining us from." I find that most people are not there live. I go live at 8 AM Eastern Time, like you said, on Tuesdays. So a lot of people watch the replays, which is fine. Again, I'm not necessarily my goal is not to get everybody to watch it live. My goal is to see the action of me going live and
Mhm.
having a guest. And it's that social proof. She's here every week. When the time comes, people come in. When they see a topic that's for them, I have had 20 people on a live.
Mm.
And I've had 0 several times, and that's okay. I don't want my guests to know either. I don't care
Right.
necessarily. So that's getting over yourself. That's getting past. That is way more than just being live. I like the fact that, for example, LinkedIn, when I go live, all my friends that are follow me see a notification, Doreen's live. No, they
Right.
can choose to go to see me or not, depending on the
Right.
topic, but I know they get the notification. So it's that she's live again. Oh, she does it every week, right? It's
Mhm.
that's the part that's most important to me. And for me to do it live, I think the part that we didn't talk about is the accountability to myself,
Mm.
right? To my business. If
Yep.
I had to pre-record everything, my life, like everybody else, just those of you who are listening, my life's chaos, right? I have 4 kids, 3 dogs, I travel, just we have snowstorms, things get
We do.
crazy. So, if I didn't have the accountability of 8 AM Tuesday morning going live or needing to have one recorded, I would be very easy to go lay down in bed and say, "I'm not getting up today." But
Mhm.
everything my whole week, that's why I do it on Tuesday. Monday, I go and wash my hair, make sure I look good. I get the script ready. I know every Tuesday morning. My family knows Tuesday morning, I eat breakfast earlier. Everybody be quiet. The dogs need to be in their crates, so it's quiet. I go live. This is just what I do. And that accountability piece
Mm.
of doing it week after week, I've conditioned everybody to know this is what I'm doing.
Good
And
for you.
that's what keeps it going. And I just know stopped and started newsletters. I've stopped and started
Yeah.
emails. I've done a lot of other things. This is one thing that I've done now in year 3 that I am not anywhere close to quitting because it's a weekly thing and I've made the commitment and I have accountability.
That's amazing. That is absolutely amazing. And I think that's a really strong message that we have to know the mindset behind why we're doing this. Otherwise, there's just what are we holding on to? Because I think the people that are like, oh, I go live and nobody's there, then if that's truly your goal, then you've got to change your strategy to make sure that it works that way. But if it's accountability, that's very different to say, okay, this is because I'm doing this because it holds my feet to the fire. and it
Right.
makes sure that I'm going to do what I need to do. And it still gives you all the beautiful repurposing,
Right.
all that fun stuff that everybody else does. You're making it available everywhere after the fact. You've got a
Right.
podcast version. It's up on YouTube. It's goes on YouTube live anyway. So it's there
Yeah.
anyhow. But
Yeah.
now you've got your shorts. And then you just said you want a LinkedIn newsletter as well. Why am I not
Yeah.
on your LinkedIn
Yeah,
newsletter?
yeah. I started it and then I stopped it even though it was working, and then I restarted it, so I was every other week. Now it's once a month. So I am putting them out once a month. I have over
I'm gonna
2,000
have to go find
subscribers.
them.
I need to do that.
Really not on yours. I'm on everybody else's.
I
Where's
don't
yours?
know. I don't know. I don't know. Something else that you were just talking about that I wanted to kind of hone in on, going live every week and whether people are there or not. I am
Mhm.
choosing, and this is something important. I'm choosing not to invite my 6,000 plus followers on LinkedIn every week.
Mhm.
If I know I can. I know on
Right.
Facebook when you create an event, because
Invite the world.
StreamYard you can invite everybody. And the same on LinkedIn.
Yep.
I am choosing not to. I am choosing to let people decide whether they want to come or not, and I don't want to tag them every week. So the only people that I tag every week are the guests. I tag them on Facebook, I tag them on LinkedIn, I send them a link. They know where it is. They can invite people to the event. But
Mhm.
it's a choice that I make. Now, is that a silly choice? Maybe. But I eventually unfollow people
Yeah.
who invite me to every single event. I just
Right.
don't I don't like to be invited to all of the events. I want to make that choice. So I have made a choice. Now, if I wanted a lot of people, think about if I invited thousands of people every single week to my event, would I get more people to show up? Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would do. I haven't taken that step because I don't like it when I'm invited. But that's something that you could do, and that would probably guarantee more people showing up, especially if you
Yeah.
do an audio event or if you did. That's a little bit different on LinkedIn. But I'm choosing to let people choose
Yeah.
because it's in a way self-serving for me to just concentrate on the guest and me. We're doing this live show, which gets me to podcast, which gets me to visibility. And I don't need all those people there. And then the other thing that I was thinking about when you were talking, the visibility part of being visible has another great perk. It's if you have any ambition of getting on a stage
Oh, I wanted to talk to you about that. Yes.
as a podcaster, if you want to get on a stage at a conference, if you want to talk about your skill, either as a podcaster or
Mhm.
whatever expertise you have, being visible every week on a live show really helps because people recognize you, they remember your name, they've
Mhm.
seen you speak, they know you're articulate, right?
Yeah.
It's different than listening to a podcast, seeing your face, seeing the expression, seeing maybe you're having some fun. And that's also really important. So if you have any ambitions on speaking, this is another really great option for you. You're basically on your own stage every week and you're less and less afraid. That stage fright goes away.
That's very true, and I've seen you recently are in lots and lots and lots and lots of events speaking. You're on one actually today as we're recording. No, you're not. So the event went live today. I know that was all pre-recorded, but you
Yeah.
were it was Creator Day, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mass
Yeah.
Creator. Yeah, so that was I've seen you coming up more and more, and I was wondering about that. So I'm glad you brought that up. If how your show has linked to your ability to get more speaking events. There are so many people out there who want to get on stages, they wanna be more visible, they want to show that they can speak. And
Right.
I think that there's definitely a huge difference between, all right, here I am recording this, but I'm gonna be processing it afterwards. Now, granted, I don't have any intention of cutting a lot out of this, but there are some speakers that I've worked with their podcasts where like every other word is the and so we've like wiped all that out. So we make them sound like they are the best speaker in the world. And in some ways, we're doing an injustice by doing that because you're not really seeing how that person truly speaks and presents themselves. But I do want to make sure they're shown in the best light. So if I have that opportunity, I will still do that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's very different to say, okay, live, you're just like, this is you and this is what it's going to be and this is how that's going to work.
And then the second part to that is because you're live every week, you showcase yourself as a facilitator, as a speaker, as an
Mhm.
interviewer, as a potential moderator for a panel, right? That's another great
Ooh,
one.
that's fun.
And as a good podcast guest, because now a lot of other people might consider doing live. You're comfortable. If people ask me, I'm like 100%, I'll show up ready for a camera.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So I do think that there's other things that when you consider live, Depending on your strategy for
Right.
your own business, your visibility strategy, live could be a really great option, especially if you want to get on stages.
I love that. I love that. All right. One last question.
Sure.
If somebody was going to start going live in the next few months, what would be your advice to get them started?
Get on other people's podcasts or other people's live shows first. So you're invited, have a pitch me on Strategy Talks. You can come with me and I'll guide you through it. Ask questions, talk to other live streamers, attend live shows. Don't just make a list of things you want, but make a list of I'm not going to do that, right? Do's and don'ts of
Mm.
what make up your own show. When I started the first year, I did 20 minutes. A year in, I decided to go 30 minutes. I think 30 minutes is wonderful. I really try to hold myself to that because I know everybody's time is precious and I asked them 15 minutes early. So that's a 45-minute commitment. So do that and then set up your systems. If nothing else, figure out how you're going to invite people as soon as they say yes. How are they going to sign up? Where does the calendar go? What do you send them? What email? How do you remind them? How do you make sure they show up?
Yep.
Make sure you have that system in place because I'm not saying it's all automated, but some things are automated, but have if this, then that, if this, then that, and just walk through it. The other tip I can tell you, invite some people that you know, some really besties to get on your first couple episodes. My first episodes was called Imposter Syndrome. And my
Mm,
longtime friend, Kristen, was on with me and we just chatted and it was, oh, this feels good. I can do this. We talked
yeah.
it out and then I got it. Then I was like, okay, I got it. So invite people that you're comfortable with for your first couple of shows and then go and invite 20 people. Just do it
Yeah.
and book them. And then once you book them, you're a go. Just go.
Don't be afraid of people saying no. So I think one of the biggest surprises with having live shows or podcasts or anything like that, so many people are more willing to say yes to that invitation than you realize because we are all looking for that, not all, but a lot of folks are looking for that opportunity to showcase themselves, to be a guest, to have these conversations, to show up because for them, that's their strategy. And at the end of the day, I find it's way easier for me to say to somebody I really admire, like, I will sell a secret, Mike Alton, I got on and I love him. Like, he's such a nice guy. But I didn't think he'd say yes, but I asked and he's, yeah, sure, I'll come on and talk to you about this. I'm like, fantastic. So you'd be really surprised that people are very open to agreeing to be on your show. You just need to ask. Just say, hey, this is what I'm doing. And this is why I would love to have you on. Flatter them.
I
Help
think
them
I've
along.
only gotten one no. I think in all
In
the
3
years, one
years?
no.
Oh,
Yeah. And it
I
was
love
more of a no, not right now than
now.
no, not at all.
Yeah.
So most people, just about everybody says yes. And it's
So
really, you refine your pitch as you go. If you say, hey, I want you on my podcast because I don't have any guests, then
yeah, that's
maybe
not good.
people will say yes.
I'll say yes.
But if you flatter them and say, I usually, actually, that's another tip I can give. I usually ask them, I said, I know you're an expert in horses. I would love for you to come and talk about a strategy to race horses in America, just making up a topic.
Right.
But I give them a little bit more detail because that shows that I've watched them. I know what
Mhm.
they're doing, that I'm telling them they're giving my audience value. And I
Yep,
also tell them who my audience is. So then that makes them be able to make a better decision about
yep,
whether they want to be on the podcast. I tell them they're entrepreneurs, they're small business owners, they're marketers, they're C-suite
yep,
people, and then curious human beings. If your audience is in there, come on my show. And
yep.
that helps when you do that.
I think it helps enormously when you can connect why you want that person on your show and who your audience is. It makes them feel very valued. Oh, yeah, I have something I can contribute here. And I would also say, like, my last thing on this particular topic, too, is don't be afraid to go outside someone's box as well. So if you recognize that somebody does something, like, for example, most of the folks I've talked to in this series are they're podcasters, but that's not what they're necessarily known for, but that's how I know them, and I want them to talk about their experiences. So I have reached out to all these as I've got an author coach coming on in a couple of next week too. But like she was very strategic about how she chose to do her show. And I think if you think about that too, while like you said, you want to talk about horses, how can you strategically run horses? Maybe there is something there in that you see that maybe they don't even see in themselves. And that actually could be a really huge bump in making somebody interested in coming to have a conversation with you if they're not always talking about the same thing they've talked to everybody else about. All
Correct.
right.
Right.
Thank you, Doreen. I appreciate it so much. I'm so glad that you were here and agreed to do this with me. I am so excited.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we'll talk soon. Thanks everybody for joining us. Bye.
Bye.